With the many sketch things happening in Raccoon City, one may think that this is actually just really an issue of the infected walking on the surface, snacking on people whenever they can. But there is much more to this outbreak than simply humanoids threatening to completely destroy humanity. Deep underground, almost seemingly to protect the entrance of the Umbrella labs where various viruses were worked upon, exists a creature who has blanketed the area with a slimy cellular matrix and exists as a grotesque version of the human it was originally born out of. So today we are going to discuss the G-Adult and dive into why these people became infected and ended up creating creatures so radically different from the other infected, or even from William Birkin himself. So before getting to the G-Adults, we must first learn about the differences between the G virus and the T virus. Some of my more regular viewers may know that I have covered this a lot previously, but someone raised a good point. As this channel grows, there more than likely may be people who have not actually heard this information, so I'm gonna hit you with it. Let's go. The Golgotha virus and G virus in layman's term is a virus whose origins can be traced back to the progenitor virus. These particular virus, for the most part, can be related to the T virus as well. However, through experimentation and testing in a lab where the T virus would destroy tissue, turning it necrotic and altering humans to the point of becoming mindless husks seeking out food, the G virus was in total contrast. This particular strain of virus would infect a host, but rather than begin to break down the body, it would instead build it up. Cellular mitosis is the name of the game. This is the same process that helps us grow and survive over time. Healing from wounds, recovering from sickness, you name it, it probably has something to do with cellular mitosis. However, cellular meiosis, now that's the fun one. Anyways, we have probably all taken high school biology, but essentially cellular mitosis is when the cell of our body split and create a nearly identical daughter cell. DNA is copied and then split up and pulled to either side of the cytoplasm. Then the middle will begin to pinch in until eventually this pinch divides the entire cell. Thus, you get two cells from one. Cellular mitosis is a great thing, but it still does require a mechanism in place to stop cells dividing indefinitely. If for some reason a cell or cell's DNA becomes corrupted and is altered in any way, or maybe it just in general stops responding to the body's command for apoptosis, this can lead to cancers. The issue with cancer and us being a multicellular organism is that cancer will enjoy living in the body. Free food, protection, and warmth. It's a pretty nice place. So the issue arises from this, and the cancer continues to grow and spread, putting pressure on the organs, leading to either the expiration of that tissue in the surrounding area, and should it not be taken out surgically or chemically, it will eventually overwhelm the host, and that will be it. The G virus is on the front end of mitosis, experimented on by William Birkin, and if you would like to see a video discussing him and his transformation, I will link a card at the end of this video. The history of the virus coming into being is a little complex. Golgotha was initially discovered in 1988 by Dr. William Birkin, a senior researcher at Umbrella USA's top secret Arklay laboratory. The virus had evolved from one of the many strains of progenitor virus used in a series of illegal human research on Lisa Trevor. It is possible Golgotha emerged as early as the 1960s though, as Trevor's unusual trait for surviving high-risk research began there. The reason for Golgotha's discovery, however, was when she was used as a test subject in the Nemesis project and her body's defense destroyed the NE alpha-type parasite, itself notorious for game-ending all hosts, and spliced the parasite's DNA into her genome. When Golgotha was isolated and hypothesized to be a tool for forced human evolution, Oswell E. Spencer, the Earl Spencer, CEO of Umbrella Pharmaceuticals, authorized Dr. Birkin's research proposal and had a new facility constructed under Raccoon City to study it. Initial research was conducted by the Birkins at the Umbrella France branch facility led by executive Christine Henry. Research on Golgotha neared completion in 1998. Dr. Birkin, having realized Umbrella's distrust of him, contaminated several Umbrella facilities with the T virus to disrupt Umbrella's control over Raccoon City and stall their special forces while arranging an asylum deal with the US military, who wanted both viruses and their main developer for themselves. This led to an assault on Dr. Birkin's laboratory intent on seizing the virus and handing it over to Christine Henry. Dr. Birkin was forced to inject himself out of desperation after sustaining several wounds, and transformed into the large mutant simply dubbed G, rather than his hypothesized superhuman. For the next week and a half, he game-ended and parasitized several people, as well as leaking the virus into the sewers of Raccoon City, causing multiple imperfect forms to develop within the cesspools. G was finally game-ended when Umbrella train he broke into detonated per an anti-biohazard protocol. Sherry Birkin, his daughter, was also infected with the virus, but experienced mutations more gradually. Consequently, when the Devil vaccine was used, she possessed enhanced healing abilities, but could not evolve into a new body. So, how does it work? The virus will actually incorporate your DNA into the immature G parasite and use it for its own growth. When this happens, the host is lost in the process and monsters are created. The G virus does exist to repair and heal a body, but does so to an extreme degree, so these immature G forms grow wildly out of control. This meddling in the genome yields disgusting beasts that roam the sewers looking for people to add to their mass born from the immature G. But not all is smooth and cool and kosher in the world of a G. That was incredibly lame. The human genome seemingly has as much influence over the G as the G does to the genome, which is where we get Birkin and the beasts of the sewer. Birkin is what is called a compatible adult. Upon injecting himself, the virus immediately begins to alter his cellular makeup and push mitosis, helping him heal from his injuries. However, through the interactions with Leon and Claire, it gets to the point where the body must heal so much that he loses himself in these mutations and cancers. His genome is directly compatible with the virus and as such can mutate and continue on despite fight after fight. During this, the body is also producing an immature form of G adult, also called G young. This slimy parasite exists to infect those with compatible DNA, which are pretty much those that share Birkin's DNA. If he finds a compatible adult, then it will burrow into them and begin turning that person much like into what Birkin has become. However, as we all know, genetic variances exist quite profoundly in humanity. Even our blood is not the same for most people. Because of this, the body can be incompatible. When the immature form finds an incompatible host, it usually leads into the game end for that person. Those with genes deemed unfit will have the creature crawl down their neck and throat only to burst out of their chest minutes later. We see this with Chief Irons when he is accosted by Birkin, seemingly to protect his daughter, which may be the case, but he still ends up infecting Sherry, and she is given a vaccine known as the Devil Vaccine, as we mentioned previously, which will stop this from happening. However, just because your genes are incompatible does not mean they can't be used. The immature G will still take your genetic coding, using it long after your expiration, and still be a danger to everything and anyone it runs across. When a person lacks this necessary coding, their DNA is altered, but they are missing the crucial piece allowing them to mutate and adapt. So what might this actually be? Well, there is currently a study happening in biology where we are trying to figure out, for instance, what makes humans so adaptable, or even creatures that can fly to another island and then become something totally different. These pieces of DNA seem definitely responsible for adaptation in successful generations inherited from their parents. These are highly repetitive sequences that can be lost quickly or turned off essentially, which allows for the body to change rapidly with the children, and as such, adaptations can come about in just a few generations in response to certain stressors in the environment. So these certain pieces of genetic coding might be read by the virus and can be turned on and off at will by it, which allows them to actually adapt much quicker in one generation rather than several. It should be noted though that while the G cannot mutate, it is still quite infective. Able to produce the immature G form, this can go on to infect other adults with compatible genes and create creatures similar to Birkin's ability. If the immature form finds an incompatible host, however, much of the same fate as Irons awaits them. So this is integral to learning about why some adults are compatible and others aren't. The G virus may be interacting with a section of coding in those that can mutate, and with those that can't, this just produces your standard G adult. Seemingly both can become a giant mass of cancerous beings born out of the G virus infection, however, but only those with the hypothesized repetitive sequences seem to be able to adapt quickly to aggressors and changes, seeing as the G adults in the sewers lack things sort of like regenerative ability. So now that we are relatively firm understanding why these two exist separately, what does an incompatible G adult look like? Well, this creature is absolutely hideous. Whatever made them human before has clearly been lost out, except for the few markers that we can see, such as a smaller leg and arm. As mentioned previously, the G adult's only form is quite different and much more shapeless, but still retains a somewhat human appearance in some areas due to the human genome influence. So let's get poppin'. Starting with the feet, we see that one side of the body has definitely become more cancerous than the other. One foot is still very much human in appearance with a plantigrade structure, albeit the skin is a little gray. So why is this? More than likely due to the fact that the blood of this creature is being more drawn to the other side of the body, where the mutation is heavily influencing tissue growth. The other foot is exactly this place we're discussing. It is swollen and red with no discernible structures, such as a skeletal or muscular one that we can identify. Instead, it has become a mass of red swollen tissue with 5 toes sticking out of the front. Underneath, considering the size of the soft tissue and how tall it is, this would denote that the skeletal structure is quite large as well. So the muscle and bone are entirely filling this leg, so it's not just like gas built up or anything. But I imagine if we did open this creature up, we would see no discernible human features, even though it is formed from a human genome. On the back of the mutated leg appears to be a tail-like structure. Bones can be seen on the ridge as well. This is the main leg that drags the creature along and supports the weight of it. This tail does exist for another reason, however. Should it be in the water, where it typically prefers to live, from what we can see, it can actually swim through the water water using the tail much like an alligator would. It will propel it through the water fairly effectively, ensuring it reaches its target to begin its attack. Moving up the legs, we see that the muscle has been increased in the human-looking leg as well. This would be needed to help support the rest of the body's weight. The upper portions of the heavily infected leg still retain no human features and match the lower leg in visuals and structure. The abdomen is fairly grotesque, retaining zero of its structure. It is tripled to quadrupled the size of that of an average human. That being said, the abdomen skin on the right side is still there or has formed, but due to the size increase, when it turns red, this is new skin formed by the runaway mitosis and fast mutation process. The chest is absolutely nonsense, much like the abdomen, seemingly taking the form of a giant worm. There is no defining line between the two, and on the interior, I doubt, even with the genome, that there are two separate cavities at this point, with how far the diaphragm would have to stretch to span the size increase. The right arm of this creature, much like its right leg, is still completely human looking. However, just like the right leg, the integument system is beginning to rip apart on this creature as it continues to grow and build in size. The left arm, as we see, has the telltale signs of the G virus infection. Much like on Birkin, where a giant eye would form and slowly he would be completely taken over through mutations that his genetic coding was allowing for, in the G adults, this same eye has cropped up. However, there is no battle for control like there was with Birkin because the human consciousness is lying 100 feet away, currently game ended. Instead, the eye and the consciousness attached to it wholly run this creature. This eye is quite massive and protected by a bony covering at certain points. This does inhibit the view, and attacking it to remove this covering will allow the sensitive eye to be exposed, and whatever you happen to be carrying at the time will be pretty effective against it. We see evidence for more skeletal growth in the lower portions of the arm, the biceps and triceps. Much like every other muscle on the body is absolutely nothing, so why do I continue to talk about it? But they must work, but Lord knows if you can really tell what they used to be. Around the elbow area, a large bone has begun growing out, giving us a look at what the actual bone thickness in this creature may be. And even lower, we find down on the arm, we see the hand. Although increased in size, this hand still sports 5 fingers, even though they look like bratwurst at this point. And oh yeah, that was the German pronunciation. This hand is the second main point of contact, allowing the creature to move. On the back of this creature, a large lump of muscle, leftover skin, and bone has begun to grow in this massive chaos. The body concerning the back has no designating features beside the runaway cancer taking hold in the area and its signature undercooked steak look. Then we get to the neck and head. The form this creature takes is much more worm-like than its humanoid origins. The neck will jut out of the bony ridge at the apex of the body. This sinewy, meaty neck is quite long, suggesting that the body is more than likely sporting quite a few more vertebrae to bridge that gap than a human would have. And the face of this creature sports a cross-like line vertically and horizontally. 2 white eyes exist on either sides of these lines, and some teeth can be seen in the horizontal line. However, what lies beneath these is pretty horrifying. Talk about a splitting headache. The cranium of this creature is completely separated by 4 points. It can split open, revealing another internal structure that presumably is the consciousness associated with the G virus infection. This worm-like structure is more than likely made out of the coating for the esophagus and will come out several feet and attempt to latch onto a person. We see something interesting happen with this, as not only does the creature have the ability to physically attack a person, but it can also chemically attack. When this worm-like structure comes out of the mouth of a G adult, it will puke up an unknown chemical onto the person that has some interesting effects. So let's take a look at what this stuff might actually be. The main thing I notice when I am attacked by this creature is the heart will go into a form of atrial and ventricular fibrillation, denoted by the health bar at the bottom. Now, seeing as you are in the sewer, bacteria is quite prevalent, but I do not believe it is caused by this because it would take too long. What I actually believe it to be is a form of hormone. When you are grabbed and vomited on, as gross as it is, some will enter your mouth invariably and be ingested by you. These hormones will quickly diffuse through the esophagus and stomach, leading into the bloodstream, and some may even be aspirated. Once there, it can begin messing with the electrostability of the heart, leading to these fibrillations. There are not many worse ways to go, it seems. But anyways, that's gonna about wrap up the G Adult. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, leaving a like helps, my dude, and subbing is a great way to stay up to date on the channel when I post. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, merch, and Patreon links in the description if you are interested in that, and I would like to thank a few of my patrons. It's Not a Spoon, Freedom Units 44, and the Lone Titan. Thank you guys for your awesome support, and to the rest of my patrons, I thank you as well. Your support is how I keep this channel running more often than not, it seems. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see y'all in the next one.